The first essential supplement for any elderly person, creatine. And creatine for seniors, considering that creatine could cause kidney overload? That question echoes through doctors' offices, pharmacies, and family groups. And the answer is clear, direct, and based on solid scientific evidence. Creatine will not cause kidney overload. This is one of the most persistent myths that prevent many people from enjoying the enormous benefits of this substance. Decades of research with athletes, healthy adults, and more recently with elderly individuals have already demonstrated that creatine is one of the safest and most effective supplements available. There is no consistent evidence that it harms the kidneys in people with normal renal function. And even in those who already have some level of impairment, the issue is about proper monitoring, not avoiding creatine. In fact, what worries me the most is not finding an elderly person with high creatinine, which could be just a reflection of supplementation or other temporary factors. What really raises a red flag is finding a senior with very low creatinine levels, because that, for anyone who understands physiology, is not a sign of health, but rather a strong indication that this person is experiencing severe muscle mass loss. And that changes everything. Because when the body ages and starts losing muscle, the impact is not just aesthetic or about physical strength. Muscle loss. In the elderly means metabolic energy loss, increased risk of falls, greater chance of hospitalization, and, most concerning, a brain that begins to fail. That's right. Muscle is the body's great battery. It houses the majority of mitochondria, the cellular power plants, and sustains the supply of ATP, the molecule of life. And the brain, although it represents only 2% of body weight, consumes 20% of all that energy. Now imagine an elderly person with very little muscle mass. That brain is quite literally being left without fuel. And the result? Forgetfulness, slowness, disorientation. Subtle beginning of a process that can evolve into dementia. That's why when I see creatinine that is too low in an elderly person, I don't celebrate, I investigate. Because that may be the silent sign that this person's muscular and neurological health is at risk. In this context, creatine stops being a gym supplement and becomes a tool for preventing neurodegenerative diseases, protecting autonomy, preserving identity. That's why it is being increasingly studied not just for physical strength, but for memory, cognition, depression, and quality of life. The body and the brain are part of the same system, and muscle health is also mental health. Therefore, refusing creatine out of fear of kidney overload is like refusing water for fear of drowning. Muscle loss is, today, one of the most serious health risks for the elderly, and creatine, when well used, is part of the solution. Without muscle, the body lacks the energy needed for the production of neurotransmitters, for synapses, for communication between neurons, for neuroplasticity, in other words, learning. But the impact goes even further than we imagine. Muscle acts as an endocrine organ. It is not just tissue that contracts. It releases substances called myokines, which are chemical messengers that have a direct effect on the brain, immune system, and various metabolic processes. When an elderly person loses muscle mass, they are not just becoming weaker or less agile, they are drastically reducing their ability to modulate inflammation, regulate mood, and protect the brain from degeneration. That's why sarcopenia is strongly associated with increased rates of depression, anxiety, and neurodegenerative diseases. The body stops communicating with the mind, and the brain, without the right stimuli, slowly begins to fall silent. Now, when an individual, whether elderly, adult, or adolescent, starts using creatine regularly and with proper guidance, we are providing direct support to cellular energy production, especially in the cells that need it most, neurons. Creatine acts as a fast reserve of high-energy phosphate, allowing cells, especially those in the nervous system, to respond immediately to daily demands: reasoning, focus, memory, emotional processing, recovery from oxidative stress. And since creatine is also absorbed and used in the muscles, its use creates a metabolic bridge between body and mind. It strengthens the muscle, which in turn strengthens the brain. It's a two-way street. In this process, creatinine, which is the marker traditionally used in lab tests to assess kidney function, loses its isolated value as a reliable reference because it will naturally be increased due to the metabolism of supplemented creatine. This does not represent harm. It represents active metabolic activity. Therefore, when creatine becomes part of a supplementation routine, we start using more accurate markers such as cystatin C or calculated creatinine clearance, which are not directly affected by creatine. OE. Proper understanding of this is fundamental, so that health professionals and patients do not misinterpret test results and miss out on using a substance that can radically improve quality of life, cognitive performance, and neuromuscular protection over time. And when it comes to supplementation itself, the most consistent studies point to a generally safe range of 3 to 5 grams of creatine per day. This amount is usually well tolerated by most people, and in many cases, is enough to support muscle metabolism and cognitive function. Many people who follow this topic, including health professionals, often consider 5 grams per day a practical and functional dosage, especially for adults and seniors seeking more vitality, energy, and protection for both body and mind. However, it's important to reinforce, every body is different. There are metabolic variations, pre-existing health conditions, and individual histories that must be considered. That's why any start of supplementation should always be done with the guidance of a trusted healthcare professional who knows the person's history, test results, and specific needs. Creatine can be a great ally, but like any intervention, it should be used with responsibility and medical oversight. In some more specific situations, such as advanced dementia, significant cognitive decline, or even certain psychiatric conditions, some studies have explored higher doses, such as 10 grams per day, with the goal of providing a more robust level of support to the central nervous system. But in these cases, medical and nutritional supervision is essential. It is not a standard dose for everyone, but rather a targeted strategy, carefully adjusted by specialized professionals. Therefore, before making any decisions about supplementation, talk to your doctor, bring the information, the studies, and build this path with safety and awareness. After all, caring for the body and mind starts with knowledge, but becomes real through proper guidance. If you enjoyed this content, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss any upcoming topics on health, longevity, and overall well-being. Share this video with someone who could benefit from this information, a family member, a friend, or anyone you care about and want to see living better. And let us know in the comments what topics you'd like to see here: vitamins, supplements, brain health, memory, energy, lifestyle. Your input helps us build a space of knowledge and care. See you in the next video.